So, I know everyone is busy trying to come up with theories and ideas about what's going on in the Natlan story quest, but the truth is, we still just don't have that much info about Natlan. This is something I find interesting, and while I wouldn't say it's terribly unusual for an unreleased nation to have lots of questions about it, I do think it's a bit strange that we haven't met anyone officially confirmed to be from Natlan in-game yet. Of course, we did meet Vanessa in the manga, and I'll have more to say on her later, but overall, information on Natlan has been very hard to come by. I feel like I don't have enough information to make for sure theories, and there are lots of other theories that are floating around the fandom, all of which I find super interesting and they make me even more excited for Natlan's release. But I do think I have enough to form some speculative ideas on how the story might move forward in Natlan. Also, please note I'm going off of what's in-game at the moment or in the manga and not anything concerning leaks in Natlan. With all this being said, let's get into it. Natlan is a nation ravaged by the unending fires of war. We know that their tribes seem to be constantly at odds with one another, and yet all hold their own rules and laws. This leads me to believe that each of the tribes have a distinct culture and distinct customs to one another. We know from the description on the talking stick that there was once a hero who united champions from each tribe to deal with a calamity. It is implied that at the end of this calamity, the Mar Javari was created. This paints a picture of Natlan as a place filled with warring peoples that only seem to come together when an outside force threatens them. We also know that there have been at least 2 Pyro Archons, or at the very least that Murata is not the current Pyro Archon. It's still a little bit up in the air right now. Though it should be noted that during the time of the talking stick, we know that a Pyro Archon was active, though it's not confirmed whether or not this is Murata. Vanessa is also recognized by Venti to be a child of Murata, saying that her people often had fiery red hair and sturdy bodies. This indicates to me that perhaps Murata, as a god, had more of an influence on the people of Natlan. Whether this is before or after she became an Archon is unclear. It is also equally likely that perhaps Vanessa's clan had more to do with the primal fire that seems to be so important to the people of Natlan. Perhaps their physical appearance takes on some of the qualities of that fire. I also think it's interesting that Vanessa's clan would leave Natlan altogether. It seems to me that it would be a strange decision for a whole clan to pick up and leave, wandering to Vat, if it were not in some form a banishment from Natlan. If that is the case, as a child of Murata, it makes one wonder if perhaps Murata was banished from Natlan too, or perhaps abandoned it in some way. All of this, of course, is interesting, and I think we'll have to wait for Natlan to come out for us to get more information on Vanessa and her clan, so let's focus on the name of the Archon quest, or at least a part of it, the Incandescent Ode of Resurrection. This clearly indicates that someone, or something, will be resurrected in Natlan, and I want to discuss possible theories as well as a potential place for this resurrection to take place. Theory 1. Murata. This is an easy thought to have. The idea that Murata will be resurrected is one that's been bouncing around the community for ages. Most of this stems from the idea that up until Fontaine, there was always some sort of Archon that held the seat of Archonhood. Vaucelor allowed herself to be executed, giving back complete elemental authority to Neuvillette. But up until this had happened, we had no idea that an Archon could even do something like this. So the idea that Murata herself perhaps died in the Cataclysm, or has otherwise been banished from Natlan, isn't an unusual one. I do believe that Murata will have a role to play in the Archon quest, whether she is currently alive or dead, so I think this could be a likely theory, though I'm not sure Murata herself would want to take back the seat of Archonhood. Theory 2. Pyro Dragon Sovereign. This theory gained popularity after the Fontaine Archon quest, the idea that instead of Murata, it will be the Pyro Dragon Sovereign that will regain authority over the Pyro element is a compelling idea. However, I'm not sure it will actually happen in-game. For one, having 2 Archon quests back-to-back where 2 Dragon Sovereigns are able to get their elemental authorities back might make the game feel a little bit repetitive. But more than that, in order for the Pyro Dragon Sovereign to regain these abilities, Murata, or at least her divinity, which is tied to her seat of Archonhood, would have to die somehow. Now, this isn't necessarily out of the question. If Murata is currently dead, then it would pave the way for the Dragon Sovereign to take back their rightful power. This resurrection of a type would be more than able to fulfill the themes put forth by the game so far. However, the main reason I am less likely to agree with this theory is because of something Neuvillette says at the end of his Archon quest. When Paimon asks him if Natlan is a nation of dragons just like him, Neuvillette disagrees, going so far as to say he doesn't think he would be welcomed in Natlan due to the changes that have occurred with the dragons there. This leads me to believe that the dragons would likely have the same reaction to the Pyro Dragon Sovereign. It is mentioned in the talking stick that most of the party members the hero had collected had companions, and though not outright stated, I believe it is entirely likely that these companions are these dragons that Neuvillette has mentioned. With this in mind, this has led me to a far more interesting theory. Theory 3. Murata and the Dragon Sovereign will rule together. Now admittedly, I don't have much evidence for this theory and it is mostly my own speculation, but if Murata has been exiled or in some way has lost a lot of her power as the Dragon Sovereign has, then I think it could be an interesting concept, the idea that the two would eventually end up co-ruling Natlan together, much in the same way the tribal chiefs seem to have companion dragons. In this way, it would really speak to the facts that Neuvillette spoke about Natlan being a nation of dragons that also coexists with humanity. This combined resurrection of both the Pyro Archon and the Dragon Sovereign would be an interesting twist on the idea. Additionally, while again this is mere speculation, I like the idea that perhaps Murata has lost confidence in herself, or whoever the current Pyro Archon is, and needs help gaining back her power to rule over Natlan, and perhaps this is where the Dragon Sovereign would come in. There is another theory out there that the third descender might be resurrected in Natlan. This is more of an out there sort of theory, but I do think it's an interesting idea, so it's getting an honorable mention here since I probably won't be going into too much detail of it as of right now. However, this theory does state that by gaining the Pyronosis, Capitano or one of the other Harbingers will also bring the other Gnosis, including the Tsaritsa's Gnosis, to Natlan and resurrect the third descender. This is given to the fact that we now know the third descender's body was used to create the Gnosis in the first place. I'm not sure I think this will happen. If it were to happen, I think it would be much more likely to happen in Snezhnaya, but it is an interesting direction for the story to go narratively, and it would probably offer a lot more information on Teyvat's more ancient history. Going on to where I think the site of resurrection might be, with the climax being the potential resurrection of a dragon or a god or both, a properly suitable place needs to be picked, and the truth of the matter is, I believe the climax of the Archon quest will happen in Mar Javarii, for a few reasons. For one, it is said that the people used to worship a phoenix that lived within Mar Javarii. Phoenixes are often used to depict resurrection as they are reborn from their ashes, and Mar Javarii is always described as a place of lava and ash. Certainly, it would make a thematically appropriate place for the resurrection. Furthermore, Mar Javarii is a place where the wind does not blow, something that I think is an interesting inclusion given the place has very little to do with the element of Anemo, not being remotely near Mondstadt nor being related to it in any way. However, I think that this is perhaps a reference to Istaroth in her capacity as the Thousand Winds or the Undying Winds. If Mar Javarii is a place that even she, and perhaps by extension the other shades and the Primordial One, cannot observe, then it would make the perfect place to resurrect a god and or a dragon that Celestia might not feel too positively about. All of that being said though, what do you all think? Personally, I'm hoping for more of a story where the Pyro Archon and the Pyro Dragon are ruling together, but that's just me. What are your predictions for Natlan? Are there any specifics about Genshin you'd like me to talk about next? Leave them in the comments below and I might pick them for my next video topic. I'm also going to start doing character analysis videos on the channel. Wanderer was selected to be first on Twitter, but I think Zhongli and Zhao will be pretty close to follow. If there are any Genshin characters that you have that you'd like an in-depth analysis on, let me know below. And also like and subscribe if any of this sounds interesting to you. May the winds bless your travels.